of course, untrue.
All right, briefly, can you just describe for us why this universal periodic review process is important for our ongoing struggle here in the United States?
The participation in the Universal Periodic Review process is critical. It's a part of a long-standing tradition. One of the ironies of the U.S. report in the process is to refer to the petition which W.B. Du Bois and Walter White, along with others, struggled to have presented to the United Nations in 1947. Complaining about the violence, official and quasi-official violence to which we were subjected, the existence of structural barriers with two continuing hallmarks. One was the incarceration, mass incarceration of African people, and the forced labor. We have the misguided notion that the 13th Amendment abolished slavery. What the 13th Amendment did was to move the enslavement of African people from private hands to government hands under the rubric of the criminal punishment system. And that is that anyone who was found to be guilty of a crime could then be forced to do work. And of course, we know that following the Civil War, there were all kinds of, as are today, as represented by the crack cocaine laws, all kinds of laws that were racialized and are used to incarcerate African people, thus disenfranchising us, and secondly, again, forcing us to work for the benefit of those for whom we would otherwise prefer not to, and for whom we receive no benefit. Then again, in 1951, we charged genocide petition that was filed. Oh God, his name goes right out of my head.
William Patterson.
Thank you, William Patterson, calling again to the world's attention the fact that the United States is presenting a myth, and that folk ought to be, and government ought to be wary of that myth. Then we had again that followed up with Malcolm X, who himself organized the submission of a petition and challenged the rest of us to follow through. We have in 1976 or 71, Jalil Montagin organizing political prisoners and redeemed prisoners across the country in the submission of a petition to the U.S. Human Rights Council, which was formed at the beginning, the founding of the United Nations, and was most recently discredited and dismantled by the United States because of its continuing attention to U.S. human rights violations. The outcome of that was the formation of the U.S. Human Rights Council, which the United States, in its rebranding of itself, has deigned to become a member and to, as they say, show the rest of the world how successfully human rights can be advanced, and when advanced, countries can grow as a result of it. It's important that we recognize that we are, in a sense, in the same position now in cycles, political cycles, military cycles, where we have been at previous points in history when the United States has attempted to rebrand itself and the rest of the world was open for various reasons to considering that rebranding. We see Obama having the Young African Leaders Forum, absent any African elders, as a way of wooing and competing with China in an effort to establish AFRICOM and to make its way into Africa, much like the point where Malcolm submitted a petition and was so active during the days of independence, emerging countries, when he went from country to country, leader to leader, informing them and educating them on the fact that although the United States had not been a hands-on colonialist as the French and the British and the Portuguese and such, it had that same mentality of white supremacy, and that it was just, they were simply changing one master for another. We see Obama making the speech on one hand about the desire to be friends with the Islamic world, while at the same time bombing and occupying Iraq, Afghanistan, and threatening Iran, and coming down with draconian repression on Muslims and South Asians in the United States. So it's critical that we are there to assume the responsibility for making sure that the truth is told. And it's also important that we're there in order to maintain and advance a tradition, a longstanding tradition of our role in the international community and in the world struggle for human rights.
All right. Thank you, Afia. Appreciate it.
Thank you.